Jalen Anthony Rose.
What up, Doe?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in.
Together we are Jalen and Jacoby. What is it that we do, Mr.
We get
Rose?
the people!
Yes!
They
Yes!
want.
Jalen Rose, Rachel Nichols also gives the people what they want. She sat down with James Harden to do an interview, and he discussed, what else? The 30-point streak that he is on. Let's listen to James.
The scoring streak is obviously amazing, but it's just something that I had to do because of our situation, and we had all the injuries and guys in and out of lineups and things like that. So I think the streak just started happening, and then now it's like something to talk about. But it's not something that I'm really honestly focused on. Like, that's something that I have to do in order to give us a chance to win the game.
Interesting. There's a few things I want to discuss about that. First of all, is scoring 30 points a game something that James Harden has to do?
Yes.
Is it something that he's not focused on?
He's focused on it.
Because there's been a couple 31-point games, 30-point games, and I've learned from talking to you that players know where their numbers are at the end of a game.
Absolutely.
If you look at Russ's triple-doubles, I mean, he's doing something amazing, but there's a lot of 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Do you think, he says he's not focused on it, but do you think he does what he has to get over that 30-point mark?
So this is a necessary evil for the Houston Rockets because the Western Conference is so stout. When Capella goes down, when CP3 goes down, when Eric Gordon's in and out of the lineup, the constant has been James Harden. And they're going to need him to score buckets in order to maintain in that stout Western Conference playoff race. So a regular season style and a postseason style, we all know are different. I hate that he has to apologize for being a prolific scorer, but here's the dynamic I want to share. There were times in Michael Jordan's career, Kobe Bryant's career, where people felt like they shot too much or accused them of being ball hawk.
Of course.
Same with Carmelo Anthony.
All great scorers.
All great scorers get accused of this. So now for James, a guy that's helped lead the Rockets to one of the better teams in the West before Chris Paul arrived. He's the reigning MVP. He understands that he can't be taking 40 shots a game and scoring 300 points that are unassisted, and they're going to advance in the playoffs. This Rocket team last year, in my opinion, would have eliminated the Golden State Warriors had Chris Paul not gotten injured. Mm-hmm. I know Trevor Ariza was out on the other side. I get it. I'm sorry. Andre Iguodala was out on the other side. I get it. But I still believe up the way they were up, and they missed 27 straight three-point shots.
That was their shot.
That's unprecedented.
They should have won that series the same way the Thunder should have won the series against the Warriors the year before.
Correct, but prop to the Warriors. They found a way to close the deal.
Exactly.
And get it done.
At the end of the day, they win
so
the
for
game.
James, just look at it like this. The regular season is just that. The postseason is a different style where you can't ISO ball freely very often because defenses can go boxes and elbows, force you to be perimeter oriented, and every time you miss, they're going to get the rebound because they're on the inside. Mm-hmm. He understands that can't carry to the playoffs, but right now he needs to do what he needs to do in order to validate playoff position.
So Chris Paul is back. Clint Capella is working his way back. Do you expect him to continue this streak even with those players in the lineup?
No. I think the streak has now become a burden to him.
See, I'm glad you said that. And you said something else that was really smart. It almost is like he's apologizing. He never said, I'm sorry for going on this streak, but it's almost like he has to defend himself against the streak. Like people aren't saying, James, what an amazing streak you're on. What you're doing is unlike anything we've seen since Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. Let's bow down to you and celebrate you. There's always yeah, you went on this streak, but it's like a yeah, but kind of thing with this streak.
And also, the other thing that's unfair to James Harden is you got to remember why I call him the most unique offensive weapon that the game has seen. Because he's the only guy at some point of his career that's going to lead the league in threes made, free throws made, total points, and the last one is really important, total assists. Mm-hmm. He's amongst the league leaders when they're operating at an optimum level. He'll give up the ball, okay? So for him to be a guy that when they're traditionally operating out of normal capacity, he's top 2 or 3 in the game in assists. So he'll pass the ball.
And Rachel asked some interesting questions to him, too, about his energy level and his fatigue. And whether or not this can happen, and how in playoff series, game 1, game 2 is when he really is at his best, and then he sort of tails off at the end of playoff series. Don't you feel like, and I hate to use this term, load management is important for James Harden, especially at this point in the season?
It's something that Mike D'Antoni doesn't necessarily use with his best players. You can go back to the Phoenix days. You can look at anywhere he coaches. He's going to play around 7.5 guys. The reason why I say half, for those that don't know basketball terminology, that means one guy that probably plays around 12 minutes. So getting close to 8 players per game. And he's going to use those guys regular season.
But that's a playoff-style rotation in the regular season.
Correct. Yeah. And so for a guy like James Harden, you know what you never get tired of doing? Playing offense. Nobody ever gets tired of playing offense. Now, you start getting some defensive stances, you start taking some charges, all of a sudden you tired. Right?
Yeah.
So I think he can manage what he's doing offensively, do a lot of gambling, get a lot of steals defensively, but preserve himself. But I think Mike D'Antoni and James Harden, the last handful of games of the year, hopefully they can validate some playoff positioning where they can idle him down some and get him ready for a long playoff run.
So in our business, there's something that you have to learn. It's about hot microphones. Because when people wear lavalier microphones, the small microphones that are on somebody, sometimes when you're on Get Up and me and you will talk and we'll have an off-wax conversation that someone can hear in the control room, that's something that you learn when you work in this business. When you're a professional basketball player, you don't necessarily learn that lesson until after your career. And you know who didn't learn that lesson? Steph Curry. Because him and Mike Malone had a conversation at the All-Star break when Mike Malone had a mic on him and Steph Curry clearly didn't know about it. And he spoke about what a conversation that him and James Harden had, and you'll be shocked to hear what he revealed.
Oh man, yeah. So I tell Steve all the time, love watching you guys play, and to me it's so good for the sport and everything. And
it's interesting though, because I was talking to James from back, like obviously complimenting him on what he's doing. The first thing he said was like, it's fun, but I want to play different. Like, I'm by myself, whatever, hero ball. But like the people want to play like that. It's a system where they actually can play beautiful basketball.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful sport.
Guys know how to play.
It's interesting for him to say that. Like I would not have thought he.
I would like, you're right.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep doing that. He's like, nah.
Well, and that's the thing. And you need help. Like after him doing that, so every night, like.
I'm sorry, I got Mike Malone and Coach Bud confused, but that's very interesting. He basically said that James Harden doesn't like playing this way. That James Harden doesn't want to do this. And it comes back to something you said earlier. It's almost like he's apologizing for what he's doing. It really is. Are you surprised to hear that James Harden is telling Steph Curry that he's not enjoying this?
What makes the Golden State Warriors great, besides the fact that they're a super team, is that their best players can put up big numbers, be really efficient without dominating the ball. That's the opposite, polar opposite of what we're seeing from James Harden.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're amongst your peers, you're never going to embrace hero ball because everybody knows that's not playoff advance style, especially when the Golden State Warriors are the team that you're probably going to have to go through.
Of course.
So I'm not surprised that he said this to anybody that would listen because he's stating the obvious.
Here's a question for you, though. Would James Harden be a happier person if he played in a Warriors system?
James Harden is not going to move without the ball. See,
that's what I'm saying.
Here's what people have to understand. There's certain prolific scorers that just like to get the ball in positions where they're comfortable and you got to let them rock. James Harden ain't the guy that's going to be running off a lot of screens without the ball. Only thing you see him do is on the right wing, do a dribble handoff action where he can go to the middle with his left hand or step back. Other than that, you ain't gonna see Chris Paul at the top of the floor while James Harden on the baseline single double
screens like
he Ray
Thompson.
Allen or Klay Thompson. He's just not going to do that. He can do that, but at this point of his career, he's not going to do that. He's going to be a ball dominant player, and when he doesn't have it to initiate offense, Chris Paul's going to do it.
Do you think Steph Curry feels terrible about Coach Bud's mic catching that conversation?
No, he don't care.
You don't think he cares a little bit? You didn't send James a text like, my bad, I didn't know dude was wearing a microphone?
Yeah, but that don't mean...
How much this is on Coach Bud? Be like, yo, I'm mic'd up. That's what you do to me all the time.
Correct.
Like, I'm mic'd up.
Correct.
Like I got a microphone on. Just whatever you're about to say. Before I even open my mouth, he'll be like, yo, I'm mic'd up. Don't you think Coach Bud needs to do that?
Well, Coach Bud was probably wearing the mic so long, He forgot he had it on.
happens a lot.
Almost like the reality television generation. At first, you're like, oh, these cameras are on. I ain't saying this, I ain't saying that. Then after a while,
you just get comfortable.
They become flies on the wall.
It's interesting. Do you think James Harden's upset about Steph Curry saying that?
No, he don't care. That's the best thing you want to hear surrounding your name. Is that I don't want to be a ball hog. I don't want to play hero ball. I want to play championship level basketball.
Do you think that James Harden is telling the truth when he says that to Steph Curry? I mean, what percentage of the truth do you think he's telling when he says that to Steph Curry?
Regular season, does he like to play hero ball? Sure, 75% of the time.
Okay.
That's no reason why a guy have 300 points and none of them are assisted. Okay? 300 points were all unassisted. Now in the playoffs, we got to spread this thing around a little bit. He understands.
But if you remember last year in the playoffs, they weren't really spreading the thing around a lot. Like it was Chris Paul or James Harden operating, and Luka Mbamute hit missing threes, and Trevor Ariza, like they didn't move the ball at all. It was really just them getting a pick from Capella and then doing whatever they wanted.
But that's the actual point, Jacoby, is that Chris Paul and he were sharing the duties.
Yes.
But Chris Paul was out.
It was hero ball, but they're just splitting who was the hero.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's really what it was.
Yes.
Like, it's not like because Chris Paul was there, they're moving the ball around and doing like a pace and space offense.
But there were times last year when those two and Capella were on the floor. They were virtually unbeatable.
Oh, yeah.
And so if they're able to capture that as the season wanes, I still think the Houston Rockets, the Oklahoma City Thunders, if they are going to be challengers to the Warriors, those will be the teams.
Absolutely. It's time for a very special edition, just for you, Jalen Rose, of News That Matters.